All right, thank you. Thanks so much for coming on the show. This is fantastic. Great meeting you. This is how we meet each other nowadays, so it's part of the course. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you're passionate about?
First of all, thank you for inviting me to this show. It's always good to think through and learn from your questions and learn from your experience as well. So I'm Sanjai Marimadaiah. I'm currently the Chief Product Officer at Push Technology. We are a PubSub platform, call it a holistic PubSub platform, not just PubSub. Some of our customers call our product as Kafka on steroids, because now you'll hear a lot about Kafka. My passion over the last 17 years, the focus has been all on new initiatives and new products and taking them to market adoption and growth in a product role. What means is most of the time I get into a product or a company when there are one or two customers and initial success, and then take it to the next phase of growth. And those have been my roles. And I've kind of maneuvered my career to get a breadth of skills rather than depth, because to be very effective in a product management role, you need to have breadth. So I've done mergers and acquisitions at IBM, go-to-market activities, and product management. And my background is as a system software engineer at Sun Microsystems, working on this.
Oh, there's a name from the past. I did work for Sun way back when.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody in the Valley would have worked at Sun at some point. So it was a great time. Yeah. So that's kind of in a nutshell who I
Excellent.
am. I'm a product guy.
So I'm a little bit familiar with PubSub. Maybe you could describe it a bit, because I mean, I remember somebody. I knew someone who used to work at PubSub, and I still couldn't really quite explain the concept to sort of a layperson who didn't understand it. Maybe you could explain it a bit.
Yeah, PubSub stands for publisher and subscriber. If you think of it as just Netflix, it is Netflix for corporate data or applications. So in Netflix, there are publishers. There'll be movies and movies from various sources that Netflix comes and they put it on their portal. And you and I can subscribe to what I'm interested in. There'll be genres that I want, your likes, and they automatically feed. So that's kind of the high level analogy. In PubSub, there is always data. This is a new term that Confluent is driving, is event-driven architecture. That means in this age, every application, enterprise or consumer, is based on an event. The event could be you checked into a hotel, or you sold a stock online, or you want to sell a stock online. So things like that, all these are events, or the foreign exchange currency values have changed. So you need to capture these events and make it available to the client applications. I'll give one more example. Like if you're watching a game or if you're betting on a game and the star player is injured, the quarterback is injured in a game, and then that changes the odds immediately. So this is an event and you need to broadcast it immediately. So the publishers and subscribers many times are different entities. So what this platform does is, these platforms that are required is you get a lot of the data from the backend sources, organize it the right way, and make sure that subscribing application can get the data very quickly. So in the old rudimentary PubSub, you just put a lot of data and subscribe to it. Many times you get a fire hose of data. In this day and age, you want to make the client as thin as possible, very minimal. And so that means the platform, it's not just a PubSub. Where we are approaching is, we take away a lot of the heavy lifting that has to be done on the back end or on the client application. So we organize so that the client application or the back end can focus mostly on the business logic behind it.
Right. So would that something, say, take into account, because right now we're living in a multi-layer world, right, where applications sit on top of applications, that sit on top of applications, that sit on top of applications. So when I go in and book a flight or something like that, that goes through, there's just through so many layers up and down the stack. Is that sort of makes that process efficient?
Absolutely. It's kind of everybody, they would be using a PubSub application. See, we have an application. If you go to pushtechnology.com/diffusion-playground, there you have a flight tracker app. Now that you talk about flights, right? So we have taken open sky data there to show an example. You can play around. There is source code. Everything is just it's a playground to learn. So in that case, you have a lot of data. What you display depends on the question you are asking. So what happens in a lot of applications, with, like even one of the ways we are better is, a lot of application, if you go to OpenSky, you have to get a 10K JSON file and organize it, process it on the client. What we do when diffusion is placed in between the source and the client application, you can organize it better. Where we have an example, your question could be that, what are the flights within the next 2 hours? You don't need to get the entire 10K, you just get the 10 data from the last 2K. Or if your question might be totally different, you're waiting for somebody to pick up somebody from the airport. So you want to see what flights have landed. The question, then you don't need to get all the 10K records to go through the, you can do that, most applications, you do it on the client. So there could be any question, so you can organize it better. And that's the data wrangling and the streams processing capabilities that we have in our product that not many PubSub applications have. So this is where the innovation is going, is everything is an event, there is information overload. Can you organize it better? That's where streams processing, Kafka is a streams processing example. So we combine Kafka's ability with the deep hierarchical topic tree, very technical term. That means that way you can send specific data that the client application needs. So both have different needs. Kafka is primarily to move data. It started off in LinkedIn. If you want to move bulk data between to various systems, that's good. It's a log-based event broker. That means you want to, an application comes up, you want to get all the data. It's very efficient that way. There are times where you just don't need all that data. You want specific data in a real-time application. So that's where our focus is.
Would you ever actually need all of the data? Because it makes sense to me to just leave the data where it is and then just query it and grab the pieces you need.
That's exactly our philosophy when we build the product, is you just need what data you need. So we have an in-memory cache, we have the data, but you can get the entire data if you need to. It's not that you cannot get it. So we organize, what we mean by deep hierarchical topic tree is, you know, the tree structure, right? So if you subscribe to the root node, you get all the data. If you don't need, go to the next level of data, next level, or you go to the leaf node. So that's where we come into picture, where Kafka doesn't have deep, it's a flat topic tree. That means you have to go back to the back end and publish the data in a different way. That means you have to send more data, more copies of data. In case of our approach, we are caching and we have virtualization built in so that you don't need to duplicate data.
Excellent. So you told me before that did you say that your background was systems analysis? Is that right? So it's highly technical?
System software. I was working on the Polaris kernel operating system internals.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. And then how did you make your way into the product management world?
So this is, look, a lot of people want to be innovators. You want to create something new. If you are innovating in a system software, you need lots of years of experience to understand the entire operating system. And we didn't have cloud at that time, right? To build a company, you need to hire a system admin first, right? In a way so that he can bring up the servers and he can build it at that time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember those days.
Exactly. You see, everybody says you needed a system admin. So I couldn't imagine myself coding at this stage in my career. That was the first thing. And I had learned a lot at Sun. I think that's the best engineering team I've ever worked with. It's a privilege to be honest. So I learned, I quenched my thirst for the coding. I knew the whole architecture, but I didn't have ideas to innovate, to be honest. And maybe I lacked that skill. So then I really liked talking to people, knowing customers. That's the transition started. I didn't want to leave Sun, honestly. There's a startup which had a position as director of solutions engineering, talking to customers and past. And I knew that to do anything, you need to be customer facing, understand the market. I'll give another funny story is the stock market at Sun was dropping down. A lot of sales guys thought Sun is not going to recover. And I was in engineering, I didn't know what the customer said, what is the issue? We thought euphoria, right? Engineers, oh, we'll bounce back. The stocks never bounced back. Then I need to be on the field side. A lot of things made it well. And then I started my evening MBA program when I joined the startup. That was my starting time. And we were acquired by IBM. I'll tell you, to get into a product manager role is very difficult. Not easy. There are not that many, first to begin with. And it's not because there are so many people who want to do that. So I joined a startup in a director of solutions engineering role. I started playing the role of a proxy product manager. And when we were acquired, it was a small startup. So I was naturally positioned as the head of products. So 45, 50 people company, small acquisition, the founders, CEOs, everybody leave. And I was left with the engineering team and me and one other solutions engineer. That was the team that was retained. So I became the product manager. And from then on, as I took the MBA classes, I wanted more breadth than depth. And the next change I did was join a new business unit at IBM, doing mergers and acquisitions. So developing the business case that really enhanced my strategic thinking skills.
Right. Because if you think about it, I mean, I'm coming to product management fairly late in the game, because when you look at the concept of product management as it is today, and in most cases, places where I've seen it, it's basically end to end, right? It's almost like being an entrepreneur within an organization, taking a product from pre-inception all the way to launch. I mean, is that not what it is nowadays?
It is. I think different companies have different approaches to product management, what they define as product manager. So if you look at some company like VMware, very technical, they split the role of a product management into product owner, which is engineering phase. The product marketing people, at least some time ago when I looked into it, product marketing people do a lot of product manager roles, like activities like the pricing and others. But if you look at Google and Facebook and a lot of other companies, new age, that they define product manager the better way, and I like it that way, is you have to have a holistic view of the business, like the entrepreneur, as they call it. You are the CEO of the product, right?
Right.
So from that angle, you need to have a 360-degree view. That's I think that's where the whole industry is moving towards.
So what would you say? I mean, if that's the concept of the product management manager, you basically have to handle every challenge that comes along. I mean, where do you think that you have front end challenges, you have mid end challenges where you're actually building, and then you have launch challenges. Where do you see the biggest challenges?
So there is no one biggest challenge. There'll be challenges everywhere. You have to handle crisis all the time. Your goal is to learn and fix and go to the next level. And there is no end to it. If you think you've fixed everything, then you're wrong, because there'll always...
It's just like being a software developer, right? There is no end to it.
But it continues, because what got you to $1 million in ARR will not get you to 4 million in ARR. And then there are stages, right? So we need to make course corrections along the way. But I'll answer your question in a different way. I wrote a blog on this. It's on my LinkedIn profile. What are the 3 key attributes of a good product manager? 3 areas of skills. And you can word this in different ways. The first one I would say is most important is customer savviness. You must be very good with understanding customers and the market. I'll give more examples around that. The second part is probably even more equally important, is that strategic thinking. And that doesn't come in day one. It comes with experience and failures also, right? The strategic thinking. And the third, which is the bread and butter of any product manager, is the product, the technical background for the product, whatever it is. It could be subject matter expert. It's a technical product. If you are a product manager for a grocery store, you must know what makes a good grocery, what's a good fruit, whatever. So it's technical foundation, I would call it. So you should be, so in terms of a technology company, technical savviness, you should be able to talk to engineering team on what you're building, understand what they are building. Customer savviness is really present. And I'll go into each of them in a little bit more detail. If you look at a lot of people in these 3 categories, they become a product manager from any of these 3 areas. Like somebody is a pre-sales is a good candidate to be a product manager. They're talking to customers. They are excellent in customer savvy. I would hire somebody who's not a product manager if he comes from a pre-sales. That's one, and I have done that. The second is somebody is an engineer who becomes a product manager because they're technically strong, technically savvy. They become product managers. Third is strategy people. I mean, take the example of Sundar Pichai, right? He had an engineering degree, and the first role was he was product manager for Chrome. Yeah. And he became, look at what he was very savvy in how it was a very technical product. So he grew. He was a McKinsey consultant. So he comes from strategy, and that is very hard to pick up. The strategic thinking is the most difficult way for people to mature into. And that's one of the reasons I took the M&A role at IBM. So these are the 3 areas you come from.
Interesting. So would you say that when you're talking about, like, going back into your past and like about some of the products that you brought to market, what would you say was the biggest challenge to bringing an innovative product to market? Like something that was really sort of like a little further out on the edge?
So I'll give 2 examples. One is biggest challenge is many a times when you get in, the team that initially builds, you don't need a product manager initially. It's just a bunch of engineers building the prototype. That's how many times it starts, even in the entrepreneurial world. Lot of time they start thinking and communicating. You get a few customers, you get lucky, you meet a really technical savvy buyer and you sell it. And they stick to the technical features of the product. It's more about inside out, what you think and you expect people. They don't think from the perspective of the buyer and the user. Why are they buying? Why should they buy? So especially on these early products, you might win a few customers. And after some time, why are you an innovator? People are willing to bet. The early adopters, they are not buying because you are a stable product, because you are moving the needle in a different way. So they want a vision from you, right? Where are you headed is very important, more than where you are today, because they know there's a strong team. They are innovate. If I'm here, my product, my solution will be differentiated from my competitors. So from that angle, it's more about thinking less from a technology angle, think more from a customer. That's where a lot of the challenges lie.
Right. So you're saying that if the idea generates initially out of the engineering team, or it comes from the technical side, as opposed to from the customer side, because you've got ideas coming in from the customer side, and those are much easier to, I'm assuming, push through.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it is. And even I think that becomes the challenge. Again, at the end of the day, with technology products, that's where my strength is, and also more so B2B. And in that case, the product is primarily engineers are the most valuable assets there, right? For a company. So they have much bigger influence, and it's very hard to convince them. Okay. This is where one of the key skills required for a good product manager is leadership without authority. Most of the time, product management, you'll have few people. It's really good soft skills and engineering leadership. The leadership is very important, influencing skills, right? So if it comes to power and this, most of the time you lose, because you can't lose engineers. You can get rid of product managers if they are not effective. So the real architects, I mean, that's the reality in many cases. And I see that, and I ask some people, I have my network, and every time it's always the thing, the tension between engineering and the product and go to market, right? So engineers most of the time want to work on the coolest algorithm or other things, not what affects. One small change in a UI or a process can have a big impact on customers adoption, not the coolest algorithm you write. And to convince that requires soft skills. And one thing advice I give to all budding entrepreneur product managers is, if you can give a platform, either brown bag lunches or quarterly meetings to bring customers, if you can expose your engineering team to customers, 80% of your problems are gone. 80%. And engineers are not like, they are, everybody wants to build up, there's nothing against them. But the point is, they cannot understand. I was in that boat, right? I never thought how Solaris would be used. And I was on critical customer escalations, and I go and sit with Visa at that time, and they see what the problems are. Oh, this is how you are thinking. This is how you configured the product. Oh, if some things break, this is how big an impact it can have on your business. That was very helpful for me. So the same thing with the product managers is, they don't trust your words. Give them exposure to customers, right? Challenges. I think those are the tactics. You can use many other tactics.
Well, nowadays with sort of like agile project management and design thinking and all those things, I mean, aren't the engineers pretty much part of the whole process anyway? I mean, they're right in there.
See, it depends on how it is implemented. See, there is, as any new buzzword, right? There's a lot of terminologies. People engineers are usually want to over-engineer, right? So in that case, they will engineer how the Scrum sprint meetings are run, how sprints are executed, how story points are assigned. So, but the real value of Agile comes in when you have a customer attend a sprint demo. Are they ready to give a sprint demo? Bring a customer and get feedback. So it's how it is implemented. It is getting better. Absolutely. The whole Agile and the lean startup, this model is very helpful, but it depends on how it is implemented and how it is facilitated. I'll give one example. When you have a lot of features, you don't go and ask customer what you need. And you have 5 features, you don't tell them, prioritize it for me. That's the wrong way to ask the question, right? That is what I mean by customer savviness, even in Agile and Sprint. I'll give one example, which we tried out at one of the companies. we were developing a kind of a monitoring and measuring. Now, all the customers, we had three good customers wanting this product, giving feedback. And their number one ask verbally was, give me a dashboard on what is the usage metrics for all the nodes in my cluster, big data cluster. I need that. Because we look at a big bank, or they're having hundreds of Hadoop clusters, or Cassandra, or Spark. They want to know the utilization so they can say that all the systems are used at 80%, I need more servers. But they never thought about anything else beyond that. If you ask what should we innovate, they won't tell you. So we take an attempt where we were a couple of researchers trying to develop a predictive algorithm on what is the capacity required for various sizes of data or various applications. Okay, if you have this amount of data to process for this application, you need a 4-node cluster. Or you need to have, if you want to run this within 30 minutes, you need to add 3 more nodes to the cluster. That's what they were researching. So we built a prototype and we didn't ask them, do you need this or what is the priority? Customers would have said, no, I don't need this. My number one priority. So we asked this in a different way. The way you would approach is, first you have to go to customers, anybody, right? Meet their needs at least 30% of the way. Show that you are addressing their need. Otherwise, you don't get a meeting. Right?
30%. I'm going to make a note of that. 30% is the optimal number.
No, it's good. I think make some progress. You show some reports, right? They said, oh, you are working on my field. So you ask them for feedback. Okay, we got the feedback on this. What is the initial design? Do you like it? They said, oh, yeah, you're giving me priority on my ask. Then they say, do you have 20 minutes to give me some feedback? Great. And you ask 5 features and want to get feedback. And the first one better be what they care about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you say reporting. I first want to ask a question. Is it a must-have feature, nice to have, or don't need? That's my question. I will go through 5 features. You go through the feature. First one is, this is where the tact and influence and soft skill comes. Like customers care about their problem. You talk about this violent agreement, right? Yes, I told you, that's why we are talking. Great, must have. You go to the next of the 4 features and you list your thing that you want to get a feedback, maybe bottom of the list, 4th or 5th or whatever, right? 3rd, 4th or 5th, not immediately in the top. And he said, they get intrigued. Wow, tell me more. And one of the customers said, predictive analytics, fantastic. I not thought it would be possible. Nobody is doing this. If you build this, you'll be a star in the market. Because today I get 60, 70 developers throwing applications on my cluster, and everybody says it should be run in 60 minutes. And nobody knows how long it should be run. And I get escalation by most of the 60 people. And I'm always fired with. And they don't have a logic. If you give this predictive algorithm, I will add another 20% buffer to it. If your algorithm says 60 minutes, I'll tell them, don't come back until it is 80 minutes or 90 minutes. Don't escalate. If it says 1.5 hours, I'll say, don't escalate until it is 2 hours, even if you're not accurate, even if you're moderately accurate. Then we ask the next question. If you have $100, how would you split the money between these 5?
Interesting.
That's very more like a curveball they were not expecting. And some people get very honest, and all the customers were honest in our case. One customer said, I'll give 25% for report, $25 for reporting, another $25 for predictive analysis still. The reason was for them, that reporting was a big issue because their cluster was big. I respect that. But the other customer said, look, I'll give only $5 for reporting that I asked. I'll be honest. Because I can put an engineer, get some rudimentary spreadsheet, and I'll be done. I'll get the approval. But if you do this, you're solving a bigger problem for me. I'll give you $60 just for this feature. So this is how you have, there are different techniques people use. This again, design thinking, user experience. These are all the tactics discussed there. So you have to be very, very savvy. You don't ask customers, tell me what you want to build. And you need to be very, the soft skills become very important. Interesting.
So can you tell me about a time that you were trying to sort of break down some barriers on pushing an innovative product through the process of a company that was, say, not really ready for it yet?
I would say not ready for it. I'll give one example. Yeah, probably ready. I think within a company, when you are pushing an idea, right, there is always a big elephant in the room because nobody talks about it. So open communication is very important. You got to listen. And when you're bringing an idea, you better have a really good value proposition. There are reasons for this. Why do you want to spend your 2 years on a product which is not really adding value? You're wasting your time. That's number one, right? Innovators, you need to have a huge monumental difference with existing product. The way this product has started was taking some of the core engines from another product, which was called infrastructure management. I won't name the full product name. And then they took the core engine and they called it, the next product was big data management. What are you really, you're taking the core engine and you're going to subset of the market and you're not really earning really value to the customer. So what happened? There was a lot of friction there because of executive pressure to innovate. They were all agreeing, but we never were taken to any customers by the sales guys because the other one earns revenue. This is a new product. I'm not going to get any revenue. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
And there will be support from others and nobody spoke about it. Then when I come in, I listen to it. You're not really earning your salary this way, right? You need to have a monument. If you're in a CTO office and want to innovate, you better innovate something that is really different and worth working on. So made it very clear. We're not going to go after, let's find the right problem to work on. We reoriented, and I made it clear we're not going to go to these customers. It's wasting time. So really, at the end of the day, any product management, you have to think about not just a product. What is the market value? How are you going to change the dynamics? Are you expanding the addressable market? Or are you going to improve your penetration? There's always B2B land and expand. Are you going to take more share of wallet from the existing accounts? Or are you going to get new logos? Everybody likes new logos. Are you going to address us getting into a new technology space that is emerging? So I think those are the things. If you're just going to say, I'm going to write the same answer, take market share from an existing product, that's really not authentic entrepreneurship. And that's where you land. And I've seen that in many companies. That's what happens.
Right. But in some of those cases, you're actually, you have to go beyond low-hanging fruit, because I think in some of those cases, people are like, okay, well, this is going to give us immediate value. It's low-hanging fruit, but how do you actually innovate? How do you go beyond the low-hanging fruit and really bring in the big value?
So I have a framework, which I probably write a blog on. So in general, you look at 5 aspects, big value. There are 5 dimensions to it. One is external analysis. You look at the market, technology trends, competitors, what they are doing, what analysts are doing, what's happening in the geopolitics, right? Or even now, right? So COVID, look what is happening in the COVID era. And there'll be other issues, right? You look at Log4j problem or the security attacks. So you look at all these that are happening, that's one data point. But all these analysis you do in the context of the area you are working on. Okay, you have to contextualize it. And the second is you look at internal analysis. Many times if you're in an adjacent space, you look at where are we winning, where are we losing, right? And look at what are your strengths and weakness. At the end of the day, you are building based on your strengths and capability. In particular with an existing company, very rarely can you go beyond your adjacencies. You always have to be in adjacencies. That's where your chances of success are more. The only revolutionary change is the iPhone, right? But before that, they had succeeded with iPods, right? Apple. But they still were they knew the consumer very well. You can make a case they were still adjacent. Apple is a consumer brand. But most of the time you succeed in adjacency. For an entrepreneur, you succeed because you build a great team. You can hire anybody with different skills. So adjacencies are very important. So that's where capability is what you need and what you have. And the third is your go-to-market plan. What should be the pricing? How are you going to sell? Market adoption? Which vertical you are going to go? All that go-to-market strategy. And the fourth element is sales. How are you going to sell? What is the sales process? Enablement. All of that. Then pre-sales activities and the post-sales activities. When you look at all of those things, you can innovate in any of the areas. That's one angle. The second angle, which is very timely, because I was watching I call this the whole product. Everybody talks about it, right? The concept of a whole product. Customers are not just buying your one product. Think about a virtualization, VMware. Customers are not just buying a virtual machine. They are at the end of the day, they want to optimize the cost and run applications. Look at how VMware has evolved beautifully. The success for them is that they think about this as a whole product. They look at how do you build industry solutions. It's not just a virtualization. How do you load a database? They give you blueprints for that. So you have to look at the whole product. I was listening to, you get all of this by being very much in tune with the customers, trends, customers, learn from others, right? There is a book called Human Element by Laurent Nordgren, I believe. He was having a talk he's a professor at Kellogg, Northwestern. And he has a talk at Google Talks. Very nice. He gives an example about a bullet. When you get a great rifle, it is not just the why does it succeed. There are two elements to it. One is the fuel power, the gunpowder, right? That's the really gives the thrust. But the accuracy is by the aerodynamics nature of the bullet that is there. So he gives the two very good comparisons, right? It's not fuel is important. That's where your IP, you need people, technology skills to build it, right? Without gunpowder, however well you design the bullet, it's not going to go beyond 5 meters or 2 meters. So fuel is very important. It doesn't underplay the requirement of fuel, but the aerodynamics nature of the bullet to avoid the friction to your target, right? From here to 100 meters, that's very important. So one example he gives is the military recruitment. They did all the things right, but the high school kids were not recruiting. Then they realized they were afraid to have this conversation with their parents. So what did they do? They started giving them scripts on how to approach, what time to talk. And if they needed, we will join you to have conversation. And that increased the recruitment. He gives that as one example. So it's a very good framework. The whole product is here, you don't build that one bullet alone. You need to think about the whole friction. So even in a product, for example, how do you migrate databases? Let's take another example. All database companies provide data migration, right? So how do you migrate data from Oracle into my new database? Everybody has data there. You want to replace some product. You need to have migration tools. It's not just the best database. You need to have migration tools. These are all reduces friction. So you have to think from many angles. That's the reason I find product management exciting, because there is not one area that you will be involved in. The frictions arises in go-to-market many a times, like migration tools. It's not a product. It is reducing the friction in the sales. They say, I like this product, but I don't have skills. So then you have a partner like a system integrator, Accenture or Wipro or Infosys, right? The low-cost countries who will do the migration. So you have, and there will be pricing issues, right? So there is no dearth of issues as a product manager.
Well, I wanted to dig into that specific example that you mentioned. Did he say how they found out that was the big problem? Like having to have their kids talk to the parents. I mean, how do you uncover? Like, what are some good ways of uncovering that sort of like nugget of friction? Like, because that's a big piece of friction, right? Like once you get past that, everything else is a little smoother. But I have this feeling that you see that everywhere in product development, where there's this one piece, or there's this piece that's sort of holding you back, but you just don't know how to get to it. I mean, what's the best way to do that?
That's why they say, like, you have to listen more. This is really important. This is what user experience people are taught to listen more. And product managers have to listen more. This is how passionate you are about solving the problem. It comes from the passion, I would say. You need to really customer empathy. When I say customer savviness, it comes from customer. This is why I mentioned customer savviness is very important. Yeah, when I did the 5 questions, it's not that you have to really care for customers, right? If they had said, I need reporting, you would ask more questions, why it is important, right? So we did not know this problem the way this person described for us. Look at our friction. He said we were on a different idea. So when I threw this out, he went on a long speech saying that this is fantastic. With this, he showed me a total another part of day in his life, day in the life of a data center manager, for example. So it is all about listening. So in the same case, how did they listen? It's all about talking, understanding, talking to them. This is listening skills are important. Asking the right questions, ask questions, empathy, tell me more. I think one idea I would give that here is, which has worked very well for me. This applies to all product managers, and I share this. IDEO, you heard of IDEO, right?
Oh yeah.
We all know in the Bay Area, not many know. So they have Tim Brown and Kelly have they have 7 rules of brainstorming, and I have used this in a lot of teams, engineering, sales. It has worked brilliantly because you build upon each other's ideas. They say that whenever an idea comes in, don't criticize it or say that's not able to work. You ask them, tell me more. What were you thinking? What did you mean? But only ask clarifying questions and no shooting down of ideas. So as you hear them out, they are satisfied, and others will think on that idea and build upon it and come up with another solution which is based on that, slightly modified. And then you work on the more number of ideas then once there are no more ideas coming out, you stop. And when you ask people for which are the 3 ideas to pick, nobody shoots for votes for their own ideas. Everybody picks the idea that is best. And this is one tactic, and I really like their approach on influencing. So that's one idea. Even when you have to listen, it's not only with customers, when you deal with engineering in any team, that's what it.
Excellent. I love that. That's really cool. So it's time to think like a futurist. It's the year 2031. It's 10 years from now. What do you think the world's going to be like in 10 years? Where do you think we'll be in 10 years?
That is interesting. I took a class on how to think like a futurist. There is the Institute of Futurist Thinking or something in Palo Alto. Have you heard of them?
Oh, the Institute for the Future. Yeah, I do work with them.
You do work with them. Very nice. So I took a class at Stanford, continuing education. Very nice. It's so interesting. All the next stages happen in 10 years at cycle. Future is 10 years. You don't go beyond that. So they invest only in the next 10 years. So I think this whole movement about, I'll give a couple of numbers that have come in, right? In the next 4 years, I heard a talk at Microsoft. There's a whole movement about low code and no code. In 4 years, there will be a shortage of over 1 million software developers in the US alone. Okay. The second is right now, the number of software engineers hired by non-tech companies has surpassed that of the core technology companies.
Oh, wow.
So like the Caterpillars of the world or the banks.
Already?
Yeah, already.
Today.
Already.
Excellent.
Yeah. So if you look at that numbers, what does that mean? You need to reduce the coding effort. Coding should be, they were promoting, coding should be as easy as PowerPoint or a spreadsheet. Excel has a lot of coding, right? If you put that today.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. That's where I got my first coding gig outside of school was actually doing Excel spreadsheets and macros.
So I think these two trends is where it is going. And then we'll have to figure out what this new work from home, work from anywhere will bring in. So if you look at my hypothesis, if you look at the trends, the 90s was all about infrastructure, right? 90 to 2000. 2000 to 2010 was all mobile, right? It continues, it doesn't stop. Then the last 10 years is all about cloud and SaaS, right? Now, this is the area where I think it will be more about applications, low code, no code movement, simplify applications. Anybody can code application. I think when some people ask me, I think people are now moving towards getting an undergrad in mechanical or another, because they already know coding, and not many people are getting into computer science because they already know computer. I think that's actually a good trend. You should get your undergrad in a non-computer science course. There will be few who want to specialize deep, but then do a master's in computer science to complement that. That's where robotics will be better, artificial intelligence, have an undergrad in statistics, psychology. Look at Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
Undergrad in psychology. So I think it will be a fantastic next 10 years in how, look at the growth in India right now. India is solving applications. All the entrepreneurs are solving local problems. The reason products were not built in India earlier was the market was in the US. There was no, and they did not know the US market. They didn't know, they were not customers. They did not understand the customers. Look at all the multi-billion dollar valuation companies in India. They're all solving local problems. And soon that same problem will be applicable to the rest of the world. So I think it will be an age of apps, low code, no code. And it's all about having an impact in your everyday life rather than a technology. Still, like the mobile, SaaS, all of them were infrastructure still at a different level of infrastructure. So I think the next 10 years will be more about how it changes your life. I think that's where I see.
So I want to dig into a little more about this no code thing, but do you really think that low code, no code will really sort of skyrocket in the next 10 years? Because there's still so much you can't do with low code, no code right now.
Absolutely. I think that is there. The same thing happened with cloud, right? The same age, 2012. No, not many people believed in SaaS and cloud. It was just beginning. And now people think if you don't have a cloud offering, it's like, it's a must-have, table stake item. Now, if you say that you need a cloud version, that means you're not thinking future. It's like a must-have. So there is more work to be done in low code, no code, no doubt about it. There will be failures, right? You'll have a company valued at $1 billion and they will go bankrupt. That will happen, or they will consolidate. But what this does is, it may not become the two-way. Look at Python is already a little bit of low code. You don't need. Go is becoming very popular, right? So they are going to reduce that amount of algorithms you need to. So microservices are already in that angle. Why I mean our product PubSub is in the land of APIs as well. You will have services. There are teams that will provide services. Look at the amount of services Amazon and Google are building on their platform. That's the differentiators. So you'll just need to call a different service to get done, and you'll focus on the business logic. So it is possible. There's more work to be done, no doubt about it. So we are still in the beginning of this decade. I think that's where investment will go. And what will drive that also is the need. In the sense, you need to build better applications. I think it will happen.
But you're saying there's going to be a shortage of programmers. That's why you'll need all this low code, no code, because you just don't have developers. You don't have skilled developers who can build this stuff.
I think there are two things that will drive, which we promote I'm seeing this in this because I'm in the application space. One is lack of developers. That definitely. Not only that, there is the need to go to market faster. The opportunity to market is short. And why are we bringing most of the things into platform? Because although we have low code features, developers want to focus only on the business logic. Why is platform as a service succeeding? Because I don't want to have expertise within my company, anything that does not relate to the core business value that we want to put in the logic. Everything I'll go to the platform, let it handle. Platform as a service will still grow, but that will be the one that will drive the low code, no code movement even further. So people want to just focus on their business logic, drag and drop line. There are already companies doing that, but not efficiently. That's why it's still not picked up. So it's this pain is real. Second is the time to market, time to opportunity shortening. Right? Want to succeed. The first mover. A lot of these things will drive this.
Yeah. So it actually, once you get to that situation, then your time to market will be very short, right? Short. Because you can have a concept, and then 7 days later, by pulling all these elements together, you've got an MVP.
Absolutely,
that's possible today.
That's possible. Exactly, that's the point, right? And add the shortage of developers to that mix. I've looked at how long it takes to hire. I've heard that some of the big companies hire people ahead of the need, put them on some projects. A lot of people they hire, they don't have projects for them to work on. For 4 to 6 months, you're just floating around doing nothing.
Wow.
Because you can't lose the fresh graduates. You can't hire them.
Yeah.
So they are hiring ahead of time and keeping them motivated through other means. Maybe popcorn and beer. I don't know what they do.
So what do you think? What about tech? What about technology wise? So, I mean, AI, I'm assuming is going to have is going to affect the low code, no code movement. What about the metaverse? Things like that. What other technologies do you see expanding in the next 10 years?
I think artificial intelligence is still a long way to go. I think that will become specific to the platforms. It will become a microservice, in my opinion. That is a specialized domain. It will be part of the platform. I think that's the need. Again, it ties back to what I'm thinking. Nobody wants to know ML or AI, right? Give me a translation, right? Translation, you have an engine that is well-tuned. You just call that as a service, microservice. And the reason I would go to Google or Amazon is because how good their services are. And you've seen that there is already low code platform that Amazon AI published. It's called Canvas or something. AWS Canvas, if I'm right. They announced it just a month ago. So it will all be around services, AI and ML. So Meta will be very interesting. I have my strong opinions on Metaverse because look at all the problems we have seen with Facebook during the elections, and even now, not only Facebook, any online platform, the trust is gone. The misinformation spreading is huge across the board, right? And can you trust a metaverse?
I say no.
I'm scared about that. I think that's really, and the point is, anybody with it, they could do it very tactfully. You throw a game and suddenly you're influencing the mindset of a teenager, right? The kind like you develop based on the books you read, right? What your own mindset can change. So imagine somebody's playing games, they will develop to be different people having strong opinions on the left, right, or middle, whatever you want to call it, right? So Meta is it's a lot of social responsibility there, but I don't think it can be stopped. It can now. You cannot stop the social media, but governance is required. Regulations are required. Even after that, I don't think regulations alone won't help. I think the responsibilities with the platform developer, they need to put algorithm checks and balances. And you saw who is this lady who made the whistleblower. She told, right, it's ownership of Facebook to put logic and to say that I'm not going to focus on profits, but I'll put the checks and balances to make sure this is a secure platform. I think that's a must. I think that responsibility should be there with the entrepreneurs, but it's hard to control that, right? With the investors, it's always pressure to grow revenues. Hopefully, I've already seen articles, the whole pandemic has changed people's perspective, what is important in life. And I'm seeing already people spending more time with their kids. Earlier, they thought they could never spend time. Then said, I've heard one of my good friends, very driven person, who says, it's not all about money. I was surprised for him
Wow.
to say that.
This person lives in Silicon Valley?
Silicon Valley. Because I have enough money. I never realized, look, I have enough money. I don't think, but if I do a startup, I won't work for anybody. But the point is for him to make that statement, it's not all about money. I was surprised. He's a younger guy. He wanted to go, I want to make more money, more money, more money. He says that people are losing people, right? What do you do after once you die? You don't carry that. I look at Steve Jobs, died at 50s and multi-billion. You don't care. I think that realization has hit upon people during the pandemic much more closely. Personally, everybody has lost some of their good friends. I lost a second cousin who was a couple of years older. I had another first cousin who was just a few months, not due to COVID. One due to COVID, the other person was just an impact of COVID, put on too much weight, all of those things, right?
Yeah.
So it's hitting close and dear to people. So that hopefully will change. Like,
well, it's unfortunate, but sort of human beings need some kind of crisis to change their behavior. A lot of times it's very difficult to just say, I'm going to do something else and stick to it. But when a crisis like this comes along, it sort of lets you sort of pause and step back and think, well, what do I really want to do? That's why you get the Great Resignation. That's why you get people saying, I'm not going back to the office. I'm going to do whatever I want. So the crisis is a good time. It's unfortunate. It's a terrible thing that happened, but it's a good time for people to sort of reassess their lives and decide to go off in the direction that makes their lives more fulfilling than maybe like sitting in a rote job that they never liked.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. I think what has happened is a lot of individual transformations happen with their own individual crisis or tragedies, if you will.
Yep.
And that was at a small scale. What the pandemic has done is it has thrown open crisis at a massive scale. And collectively, people are talking and discussing. So I think the scale at which the tragedy has struck every person in the world is huge. So like anything in life, the biggest transformation, and you will see that the way success is all through hardships and failures, right? Every successful person has had a tragedy, and that transformed tragedy or a failure or whatever you want to call. And but now this is happening at a massive scale, and collectively people are talking and influencing. So when you look back at those personal tragedies, you think that what is blessing, what is curse, right? I think now you look back and you sometimes call it blessing in disguise, right? So now it is happening at probably a larger scale, and collectively people are talking. I do believe that as tough as it has been on several families to lose the near and dear ones, and sometimes even hardships, right? Losing both the parents at the young age. I've heard those stories. But then collectively across the globe, there'll be positive to come out of this. That's my opinion.
Oh yeah. I think we'll definitely come out stronger in the end.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much. This has been fantastic. Very interesting. If someone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
I spell Sanjay with an I. And Sanjay, my
I noticed that. I'm like, that's different.
Yeah, that's different. So you'll find me on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Well, I'll put all your contact information in the show notes. And it's been great. It's been great talking with you. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. You always bring out the best questions and make it engaging. So I wish you good luck with this series. And thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Yes.